He was in my kitchen, wearing my robe, holding my mug. I didn't even need to ask who he was. The smug grin on his face gave it all away, like he was already celebrating something. Something sick. Something disgusting. "Morning, champ," he said, taking a sip and nodding like we were buddies. "Coffee's a bit strong, but your beans are decent." I didn't blink. Didn't move. I was still standing in the doorway, one foot inside, the other on the threshold of a life I thought I understood. Behind him, I saw the back of her head, my wife Melissa, sitting at the kitchen island in her silk nightgown. The same one I bought her for our anniversary. She didn't even flinch. This wasn't a surprise to them. It was a show. The guy leaned against the counter like he owned the place. "Melissa said you'd be gone until noon," he said casually, not even hiding the smugness in his voice. Guess someone got excited and came early. That's when I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because something inside me snapped. That kind of quiet, broken laugh that sounds like someone choking on glass. "Get out of my house," I said slowly, each word sharper than the last. He smirked and stepped closer. "Or what?" he asked. "You gonna flip out? Throw a punch? Be a man for once?" Melissa finally turned to me, her expression flat, almost bored. "David, don't embarrass yourself. This isn't a movie." I looked her dead in the eyes. "No, it's a documentary, and the ending's gonna win awards." The Alpha, that's what I'll call him, since he clearly loved the title, tried to close the distance again. "You really think you're in control here?" he asked, lowering his voice. "Look around, man. She chose me. You've already lost." I could feel my hands trembling. Not from fear, from rage. A kind of rage that makes your vision blur and your muscles twitch. "You're standing in my house, wearing my robe, drinking my coffee," I said, stepping forward until we were nose to nose. "But you made one mistake." He raised an eyebrow. "Oh yeah? What's that?" "You thought this was your victory lap," I whispered. "But this is the start of your funeral." That's when I grabbed the robe's belt, my robe, and yanked him forward so hard his chest hit mine. The mug slipped from his hand and shattered on the floor. Melissa stood up, finally looking nervous. "David, stop." I didn't hit him. I didn't have to. I just looked him in the eyes and smiled. "You've got 60 seconds to be out of this house," I said. "After that, I won't be responsible for what happens to your car." His cocky expression wavered. "You think I'm scared of you?" "No," I said, pulling out my phone and holding it up. "But you'll be scared of this." On the screen was a live video feed. Our bedroom. A camera he didn't know about. A very clear view of him and Melissa. Talking, laughing, and doing things married people aren't supposed to do with strangers. Melissa gasped. The Alpha's face dropped. "Get out." He didn't say another word. He just walked out, grabbing his clothes from the hallway as he left. Melissa stayed rooted in place. Her lips parted, but no words came out. I didn't speak, either. I walked past her, straight to the office, and locked the door. That was the moment my world shattered. But I didn't fall. I started building something new, with sharper edges. I sat there for hours, staring at the wall like it could explain how we got here. Every memory I ever trusted kept replaying in my head with a new filter, her lies coding every smile, every kiss, every "I love you." It was all contaminated now. At some point, I heard her footsteps outside the office. She tapped the door once. "David," she said, her voice soft like it hadn't just belonged to the same woman who let another man walk around our home like a king. "We need to talk." I didn't move. She tried again. He didn't mean anything. I let that sentence hang in the air. I wanted to rip the doorknob off its screws and scream into her face. Instead, I sat still, my hands clenched into fists, my jaw locked so hard it ached. Eventually, I opened the door. She looked surprised I didn't yell. Maybe she was hoping I'd scream, flip a table, give her something to twist back on me. Instead, I just looked at her, studying every inch of her face like I was meeting her for the first time. "You lied to me," I said. Not once, not even 10 times, but over and over, until it became second nature. "You invited him into my house, into our bedroom, into my F." I stopped myself before finishing. No, she didn't deserve the emotional satisfaction of hearing how deeply she'd cut me. "It was a mistake," she whispered. "It just happened. I didn't plan it. He understood things you didn't." That line nearly made me laugh. "He understood you?" I asked. "You mean, he stroked your ego, told you were still 25, pretended your stories were interesting, while I was out here building us a life." She crossed her arms, her expression shifting into something colder, more familiar. You were always too focused on work, on structure. I needed more. He gave me attention. Yeah, I said, smiling without warmth. He gave you a lot more than that. She flinched, not from guilt, but from being caught. What now, David? She asked, folding her arms tighter. You want to scream at me? Throw me out? We have a life together. You don't just erase that. I took a step closer. You already did. She rolled her eyes. Grow up. That's when it hit me. She wasn't sorry. Not even close. She was irritated she got caught. Upset her little fantasy world crumbled. I was faithful when you were at your worst, I said quietly. When you gained weight and cried over everything. When you lost your job and sat around the house for months. I was there. And I didn't ask you to be, she snapped. Don't act like you're some saint. You didn't have to ask. That's what love does. But you don't get that, do you? Because the first shiny distraction that came along with a big jaw and an ego bigger than his bank account, you folded faster than a paper napkin. Her silence was louder than any scream. I walked past her and headed toward the bedroom. Packed one bag. Just enough clothes to get me through a few days. She stood in the doorway. So that's it. For now. I paused. But don't worry, Melissa. I'll be back, with paperwork. She laughed, almost like it amused her. You think I care about that? I've already talked to a lawyer. I turned back, calm. Good. So have I. Her face twitched. Just for a second. That little crack in her confidence. She didn't expect me to play the long game. As I walked out, she called after me. You'll regret this. You're not the victim here, David. You were never enough. I stopped at the door and turned. No, I said. I was too much. And you? You were just good at pretending you could handle it. Then I left. And for the first time in years, I didn't look back. It wasn't peace. Not yet. But it was the first breath of freedom. I didn't sleep that night. I didn't even try. I sat in my car in a grocery store parking lot, engine off, watching the fog roll over the asphalt under flickering lights. My phone buzzed nonstop, calls from her, texts from numbers I didn't recognize. Probably her friends. Maybe even him. I blocked every one. At 3:42 a.m., I finally opened the video again, the one from the bedroom camera. I hadn't watched it in full yet. I thought maybe I didn't need to. But I did. I needed the truth, unfiltered, straight from the source. And there it was. Melissa, laughing. Melissa, smiling. Melissa, talking about me like I was some washed-up roommate she tolerated out of pity. Then came the physical betrayal. I looked away halfway through it, not out of shock, but disgust. It wasn't just what they were doing. It was how easy it was for her. How casual. How practiced. I felt hollow. Like someone had scooped out my insides and left me with just enough weight to keep breathing. The next day, I moved into a hotel. Simple. Quiet. Anonymous. Just me, a suitcase, and a bottle of bourbon I didn't even touch. I wasn't ready to drink. That would mean accepting it. Numbing it. I needed to feel every shard. Melissa didn't stop texting. Her tone changed with every message. From smug to sorry. From sweet to savage. One of them read, "You'll never find someone who puts up with you like I did." I stared at that one longer than I should have. And then I laughed. Because now I saw it clearly. She thought she endured me. That being married to me was some favor she granted, like a monthly subscription she could cancel when it bored her. 3 days later, I met with my lawyer. A sharp woman named Denise who didn't smile once during the meeting. After I showed her the footage, she closed her laptop and said, "You want to go quiet or nuclear?" I didn't hesitate. I want to make sure she remembers this forever. She nodded. Then we go for everything. And we did. The financial side of the marriage had always leaned in my favor. My name on the house, my company, my retirement. Melissa had always acted like she had leverage, but in reality, she had air. And air doesn't hold up in court. When the papers hit her doorstep a week later, she called me, sobbing this time. "You're blowing everything up," she wailed. "No," I said coldly. "I'm just removing the rot." She tried every trick in the book, claimed I was abusive, that I neglected her, that I didn't care. But the recordings spoke louder than her lies. And then came the day she showed up at my hotel. I didn't let her in. She stood in the hallway in heels and a trench coat, thinking she still had power over me. "You still love me," she said, trying to smile. "I know you do." "No," I replied. "I just love the version of you that never existed." Her face twisted, and she muttered, "You're such a coward." I'm the man who finally stopped lying to himself, I said, shutting the door. After that, it got quiet. Not peaceful, not yet. But still, I started running again, eating better, talking to friends I'd neglected for years. My business doubled in revenue that quarter. It was like the poison had been flushed out of my life. But every now and then, I'd see something, an old photo, her perfume in the elevator, a joke she once made. And for a second, I'd remember the version of her I fell for. The version I wanted to believe in. And then I'd remember the morning she let another man sip coffee in my robe. That usually fixed it. 2 months later, I got a message from Jake, my neighbor. A photo. Just one. It was my driveway. My house. And in it, Melissa, standing beside that same alpha idiot, loading boxes into a black SUV. Jake wrote, "She's moving out. Just thought you should know." I stared at the image for a long time. She looked smaller than I remembered, like the weight of everything had finally hit her, or maybe she just didn't look so big now that I'd taken off the blindfold. I didn't reply to Jake. I didn't drive over. I didn't call her. I just watched the digital evidence of her disappearing. She left behind 3 voicemails that day. The first was cold, the second was pitiful, and the third one was her crying. "David, I don't know who I am anymore. I don't know how this happened." I deleted all 3. That night, I went back to the house for the first time. It was empty, quiet, still smelled faintly like her perfume, but now it just mixed with dust and bitterness. I walked from room to room, opening drawers. Nothing left. No notes, no photos. She didn't even take the anniversary cards I gave her over the years. They were still stacked in the nightstand, unread, probably, uncared for. When I reached the closet, I found one of her heels. Just one. It was almost poetic. She always used to say, "One shoe is useless without the other." I left it there. Let her feel what that meant when she realized it was missing. The bedroom felt different now. Not haunted, just hollow. Like it had held something once, and now it didn't. Like the walls had finally stopped pretending. I pulled the sheets off the bed and threw them in the trash. I replaced everything, the pillows, the duvet, even the mattress. If I was going to heal, it wouldn't be on memories soaked in betrayal. That weekend, I invited over a few close friends. I made ribs, played music. We laughed. No one mentioned her. Not once. It wasn't a celebration. It was a restart. 2 days later, I got a letter. Actual paper. From Melissa. She didn't even sign it. She just wrote, "I hope you're happy. He's not what I thought he was. You were the safe choice. I just didn't realize safety was what I needed until I lost it." I folded the letter, slid it back into the envelope, and dropped it in the shredder. If she thought I was her backup plan, her safety net, her plan B, she was even more deluded than I realized. Because now, I wasn't the man she betrayed. I was the man who rose after it. And rising always costs something. For her, it cost everything. Weeks passed. I didn't count them. I just felt them, like seasons changing behind my ribs. Every morning, a little more light came in. Not because things got easier, but because I got stronger. One night, I ran into someone unexpected, Travis. One of the guys I hadn't talked to in almost a year. He used to come over for poker nights. Melissa never liked him. Said he was too blunt. Now I understood why. Blunt people spot lies fast. He walked up to me at the bar, clapped a hand on my shoulder, and said, "Heard about the implosion. You good?" I paused for half a second, then nodded. Better than I've ever been. He didn't ask for details. Just handed me a whiskey and said, "To freedom." We drank, and for the first time in forever, I laughed without any bitterness behind it. It wasn't revenge I needed, it was release. A few days later, my lawyer called. "She's stalling," Denise said. "Trying to push for more in the settlement." I smiled. Let her stall. I've got time and proof. We went to court. She showed up in a beige pantsuit and a forced frown like she was the victim in a sad TV drama. Her lawyer tried the usual tactics: emotional distress, years of support, financial dependency. Then Denise stood up and dropped the file. Audio clips, video footage, messages Melissa forgot to delete. The judge barely blinked. 10 minutes in, Melissa's case was in ashes. She didn't look at me once. The ruling came swift and sharp. House. Mine. Business. Untouched. Alimony. None. She walked out with a suitcase, a hollow expression, and a man who no longer wanted her. The alpha bailed 2 weeks before the hearing. He couldn't handle the fallout. Shocker. I left the courthouse alone. No cheering. No victory dance. Just a long breath and the weight sliding off my shoulders. That night, I went home, poured myself a drink, and walked to the backyard. Sat under the string lights I once hung for her birthday. I stared at the stars and finally said it out loud. She's gone. It didn't sound like sadness. It sounded like peace. I didn't want her back. I didn't want revenge. I didn't even want answers anymore. Some questions don't deserve closure. They deserve silence. And in that silence, I built something new. Something better. Something mine. It happened on a Sunday. The same kind of Sunday we used to spend making pancakes, watching reruns, pretending we were happy. Except now, I was sitting in my backyard, sipping black coffee, finally enjoying the quiet. Then the gate creaked. I looked up, and there she was. Melissa, standing on the edge of my property like a ghost that had wandered too far from the grave. She wore no makeup, no jewelry, no performance. Just jeans, a sweater, and that look people wear when they've lost everything and still think they can talk their way back in. I just wanted to see it, she said softly, looking past me toward the house. I thought maybe if I saw it again, it would feel like mine. I didn't say anything, just waited. Let the silence hang long enough to choke her comfort. She stepped closer. You look different. That's because I am. She gave a short, broken laugh. You don't even ask how I'm doing? I finally met her eyes. No. She flinched, but only for a moment. He left, she said, like I didn't already know. Turns out, being someone's fantasy doesn't mean much when reality hits. I nodded once. Good to know. She wrapped her arms around herself. You probably hate me. I stood up. No. Hating you would mean I still care enough to feel something. I don't. Then what do you feel? I walked past her, toward the fence, opened the gate. Freedom. She stood there, searching for something in my face. Pity. Regret. A crack she could crawl back through. She found nothing. I never wanted to hurt you, she said. Yes, you did, I replied. And it worked. You hurt me so well it ended who I was. But here's the part you didn't expect. What came next was better. She didn't argue. She knew better. She just nodded slowly, then stepped out. I closed the gate behind her. Not slammed. Just clicked it shut. Clean. Final. Back inside, the air felt lighter. Like she'd taken the last of the poison with her. I picked up my coffee, walked into the kitchen, and looked out the window. There was no trace of her anymore. Not in the garden. Not in the hallway. Not even in the memories. They belonged to a version of me that didn't exist now. This new version? He wasn't perfect. But he wasn't blind anymore. And he'd never, ever let someone like her through that gate again. Weeks later, I found myself walking through a bookstore on a rainy afternoon, something I hadn't done in years. Not because I loved books, because she didn't. And somehow, over the years, her preferences became law. Her boredom became my silence. Her dismissiveness? My guilt. Not anymore. I picked up a novel, bought it without overthinking, and sat in a corner cafe reading until the sky cleared. No distractions. No arguments waiting at home. No second-guessing myself for enjoying something simple. That's what freedom looked like. Small things I used to love, returning like old friends I hadn't seen in years. One night, I sat down and wrote a letter. Not to her. Not to a judge. To myself. Just 4 lines. You were enough. You were loyal. You were patient. And you deserved better. I folded it, tucked it in a drawer, and never opened it again. I didn't need to. Some scars don't fade. But they don't have to ruin you either. They can remind you, sharpen you, build you. Melissa will move on. Probably to another man she'll try to impress, control, or break. That's not my concern. She's not my problem. She's not my pain anymore. I've stopped wondering if she regrets it. I no longer care if she wakes up at 3 a.m. wishing she could undo it all. That's her burden now. Mine is light. Because when a man walks through fire and keeps going, he doesn't come out the same. He comes out forged. And I am no longer the man who stood silent in his own home while another man called him champ. Now, I am the man who watched everything collapse and rebuilt better, stronger, and alone by choice. And if I ever love again, it'll be with both eyes open. And no one, not a single soul, will ever wear my robe in my house again.